afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to Seasoned Women's Community Awareness Day in Politics. Okay? I am so happy that you attended. We are live for those that couldn't come. And this community politics town hall is about knowing your candidates. You should know who you're going to be voting for, hear their opinion and their view and their perspective on what they are wanting to do when it comes to this community. My name is Mary Dean, and I'm the host of Seasoned Women's Podcast. Let me introduce you to the candidates. Candidate number one, and I didn't get a resume from you guys and ladies, but hey, that's all right. I think a majority of the people in this room knows who you are. Yeah. But when you have your little minutes, then you can explain and tell people who you are. Candidate number one right now is Mr. Joseph Shepherd, running for District 1 seat, City Council. Where you get to speak. Candidate number two that's sitting next to Mr. Shepherd is Ms. LaWanda DeShazier, also running for District 1's council seat. Candidate number three is Ajane Bennett. She's another candidate running for the District 1's council seat. Okay. So I want these candidates to introduce themselves. They have 3 minutes to do so. We're running on a little schedule because Mr. Shepherd has to leave early, but I think we'll be able to get through what we're doing by the time he gets ready to leave. Mr. Shepherd, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elder Dean, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joseph Shepherd. I'm a candidate for Wichita City Council, as Elder Dean has mentioned. Thank you for coming out today in the heat. I'm running because I want to bring hope and help back to local government. I think that at all levels of government, our democracy is in a crisis, and I really believe we need to focus on the core services and doing what it is that local government should function to do. I've been a Wichitan for over 15 years, going on 16 years this August. I arrived here on accident. I came here to visit my father, who was a pastor in the African Methodist Episcopal Church at St. Paul AME on 17th and Piatt, and the rest is history, and I've been here ever since. He has since moved on to St. Louis, Missouri. He's also now in California, pastoring the church that my great-grandfather pastored, but I've decided to make Wichita my home. I went to Wichita State University, received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, my master's degree in public administration, where I've had the opportunity to take classes from city officials, including those in planning and those in the city manager's office. And now I'm currently working on my doctorate in education, where my dissertation is a narrative inquiry focused on the experiences of Black student body presidents at predominantly white institutions, dissecting how these systems oftentimes hinder us, Black people, me, from being able to successfully navigate those spaces, and how do we eradicate those systems. I'm running on 3 things: economic advancement, making sure that we are building opportunities for not just our young people, but others in the workforce who are often left behind to receive jobs and livable, payable jobs, so that way they can live out their version of the American dream. I also believe that we should be invested in our local entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs, as it does drive value in our local economy. I also believe that we have to take a look at our business and industry and make sure that we're being efficient with our dollars, how we're spending them, while also maximizing every single penny that is in the general operating budget at the city level. The second thing is we need to cultivate strong neighborhoods and strong communities. I believe neighborhood associations and the people that make up those neighborhoods are the power and the lifeline in our city. But right now, a lot of our neighborhood associations are dying, and so we need to look at how do we create aligned incentives to make sure we're mobilizing those communities to get involved, while also creating walkability, protecting the character of our neighborhoods, addressing homelessness, as well as addressing the affordable housing crisis and the housing affordability crisis. And the last thing is something that you've heard individuals speak to often, that's building trust between the people and local government. So how do we strengthen that communication, making sure that we are innovating ways in which we reach people, going door to door, not just during an election season, but even after you are elected, but being physically present and available so folks know where to find you when they don't have the time to go to City Hall or when they don't feel comfortable going to City Hall. Again, my name is Joseph Shepard, candidate for Wichita City Council District 1, and I look forward to engaging with you today.
Wanda Shaver?
Right, let me know my 3 minutes are up. Hello, I am LaWanda DeShazer, and I am running for the City Council seat in District 1. And you may say, well, LaWanda, why are you running? And I'm gonna tell you why. Because I know that there's another level to giving back to citizens. I know that as a nonprofit, as a community advocate, there's only so much we can do till we hit that barrier, right? And that barrier is resources and finances. And how do we get those resources? We need somebody in the seat that understands what it's like to walk the walk from the grassroots levels. We need someone to understand that all the good work that's being done is being hindered because of lack of resources. And resources are on the political level, whether we agree or disagree, that's where the resources are. I grew up on 14th and Popular. I didn't know at the time it was one of the poorest districts in Wichita, and right now even the state of Kansas. I didn't know I was poor because I still had family values, I still had support, but it was one of the poorest districts ever. I am a proud product of 67214. I'm a proud product of District 1. I went to Southeast, graduated, went to WSU just for a hot minute. I got my degree from Southwestern College. Undergrad is in human resources. I have a master's degree in business from Southwestern as well. I have a mini MPA from WSU, public administration. I worked for Sedgwick County for 20 years in the fire district. And the thing that's unique about the fire district is that those funds are all taxpayer funds. It all came from tax bases. So I understand how a budget is derived. I understand how you expend a budget that is tax funder based, right? And so I have 20 years experience, $15 to $20 million budget in which I created from the beginning, and throughout the year we expended, and at the end I was accountable for what was expended. So I understand government, I understand budgets. I want to bring my experience to District 1. I tell everybody I am ready. I will be ready day one because I do have the experience. Not only government experience, I have people experience. None of this doesn't even matter. We don't care about the people, the residents in the district. And so because I have been boots on the ground, I have been doing the work, NAACP Youth Council, District 1 Advisory Board, I come into contact with so many different people and so many different needs. And so this will allow me the opportunity to continue to help our citizens, to continue to bring them the resources they need in a district that's been somewhat overlooked. We do have, it's very diverse, and there is populations that have plenty of resources, plenty of funds, big, beautiful homes, and then there's other areas that are barely surviving. And so I want to be an equitable voice for everybody in District 1, and especially in the area that I grew up in. I am LaWanda DeShazer, and I am running to seek election for City Council District Number 1.
Ms. Bennett?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank Elder Dean for asking me to be here today, and thank each and every one of you for being here today. I'm not a real talker. People think I am, so I have to take notes. My name is Ajane Bennett, as most of you know, and I'm proud to stand before you not just as a candidate for City Council, but as a lifelong Wichitan, a neighbor, and a committed community advocate who has walked with you, worked beside you, and fought for you. I'm running to represent District 1, which I feel is the heartbeat of Wichita. A district full of history, beauty, resilience, and strength, but also one that has too often been overlooked and underserved. Why am I running? From living experience to leadership. For over 16 years, I've owned and operated a health and life insurance brokerage that has helped hundreds of families plan for their future. I've served as president of the Northeast Area Neighborhood Association for 8 years, and I'm on the executive board for WIN, the Wichita Independent Neighborhood Association. I've been at the front lines of community-led change, not behind a desk, but in the streets, in meetings, at listening sessions, and right beside the people. Because of my research and collective efforts, I was able to be a part of the ribbon cutting of Rock the Block tie-in, where Habitat for Humanity has transformed 16 plus of the once boarded up local housing homes into beautiful, affordable housing. So now we will have we'll have definitely 16 new homeowners in the community. We will bring approximately 21 adults and about 32 children to that community. And when we have home ownership, it increases the value of the community. It cuts down on crime. It's just a positive thing. So I say thank you to Habitat for Humanity for what they're doing. I really appreciate it. One of the most urgent fights I felt lead is the fight for environmental justice in the 29th and Grove area. A neighborhood poisoned by Union Pacific's contamination of the soil, groundwater, and air with the deadly chemical trichloroethylene, better known as TCE. And vapors testing for residential homes, churches, schools, and all that's being paid for by Union Pacific. And because of a relentless organizing and collaborating with leaders at the local and state and federal levels, including our senators, state representatives, the EPA, and the DOJ, we've secured results. In 2023, Grace Med invested approximately $350,000 into health testing for residents. And just recently, in 2024, we helped secure an additional $3.5 million through legislation and private donors to expand that medical testing and outreach our community. To properly inform the entire community of this serious and potentially deadly health hazard, because it really has not been publicized like it should. So we plan for that to be a part of what we do going forward.
Ms. Bennett,
Yes.
got to close it down.
All right. Okay. And I'm serving on an advisory board now to determine how those funds are going to be allocated, and make sure they're not given to the whole state, because that's what they want to do. Even though it was allocated for us in 29, it's been changed. But basically, my vision for District 1 is rooted in 4 clear priorities: affordable housing and tenant protection, environmental justice for all families. No family should have to wonder if their water or soil is safe. Economic growth and workforce opportunities. I also helped EPA bring a 3-year EPA training program here. Workforce received a $499,000 grant for that program, and DEA has not canceled that. We still have it. Spend public safety and community wellness, and so I love y'all. I need to see you at the polls on August the 5th. I need to vote in your voice.
That's my birthday.
All right, so the next one is we're gonna ask questions. And each one of you have 2 minutes to answer the questions. A lot of questions, but we're not gonna be able to get through them, but we're gonna try, okay? First one for everyone is, what specific policies would you implement to improve public safety in District 1 without over relying on law enforcement? Yeah.
You wanna go and?
Yeah, Mr. Shepherd, you wanna?
Sure, absolutely. So particularly for me, I guess you can call this a policy, but for those who are not aware, 40% of the general budget or from the city's budget goes to law enforcement. And I don't think the question should be, how do we not rely on law enforcement. I think it should be, how do we look at redefining what law enforcement looks like? I think community intervention programs like Cure Violence is a law enforcement strategy. It takes folks who have been touched by the criminal justice system and places them in community so that way they have a relationship and they're able to relate to individuals who are going down the wrong path to deviate them onto the right path. And I think that we should be allocating dollars from the police budget to support that program long after we cannot do that from the federal grant dollars that are supporting that program right now. And at the state of the federal level, we don't know what the federal level is going to be able to provide, to be quite frank. And so local government is probably going to have to be responsible for doing a lot more of that. Also, we'll look at how do we ensure that we are building in and or working with the Fraternal Order of Police the cultural competency and the cultural training that each law enforcement needs to have before they go out to their beat or go out to the streets and engage and advocate for protecting and serving individuals. We heard it earlier today in the introductions. The reality is that District 1 and all across the city of Wichita looks different. What works over here is not going to work in College Hill. What works in College Hill is not going to work in Crown Heights. But what we do know is that we need individuals who are there to protect and serve our community to be aware and to be proximate to the needs of that community. And then I would also say that we need to rely on community-based asset training. I think we need to start asking the question, do you know your neighbor? Because while home ownership is a dream for a lot of people, for a lot of others, it is not a dream. And for a lot of folks, especially the millennial population, they don't have a desire to own a home, and it is completely out of reach for them financially with the college debt, like me, that we have taken on. But that doesn't mean that people don't deserve to live in safe neighborhoods. So how do we use community-based assets to encourage folks to get to know their neighbors, to engage with their neighbors, and to protect their neighbors from harm and or hurt when it is arising?
Mr. Shazier?
Right, so I too believe that, let's get to your question, but how do we make sure that the police, that our relationship with WPD is more productive? And so, it gets back to community policing. Years ago, community policing was a real thing. We knew, any neighborhood knew the officer that they could go to for any question. You call that officer because that officer was invested in different communities. And now, all officers are supposed to be community police officers, but the community has been taken out of it. So we need to really bring that department back. And so I heard something to say, we can do better, right? How do we do better without expending more money? We reallocate the funds that are already there. Our police department, like I said, is 40% of our budget. How do we reallocate those funds that already exist to really secure safety in our communities? And we have something called the Citizens Advisory Board. It's time to put teeth into that. We want to have trust. We want people to feel like they can really say something to or about the police, or they want to feel like they can even accommodate the police for doing a really good job. We need to put teeth into our Citizens Advisory Board, because without teeth, it's just another organization. That's how we hold our police officials accountable, right? And that's how they can also hold us accountable. It's a working together process. Community policing, working together process. And then when we talk about community, right? This is down the road, but one of the things that I really want to touch upon is that we shouldn't just keep giving funds to organizations just because we've already given funds to the organization. Everybody has to be held accountable. If we're going to give $1.4 million to an organization, we need to see what violence has been cured. We need to see if they're in the schools, what have they been producing. So let's hold everybody accountable and let's use those funds wisely.
Mayor, would you, I'm sorry, I think she missed the question. Would you repeat the question?
I said, what specific policies would you implement to improve public safety in District 1 without over relying on law enforcement?
Okay. Listening to my opponents here, accountability is for everyone. Everything's about accountability, but I believe everyone deserves to feel safe where they live. And true safety is more than policing. I do have a community police officer that I work very closely with. It's difficult for him because he has such a large area, because they have reduced the amount of police that are on that particular program. But I support community-based public safety, trauma-informed response teams, violence interpretation program, interruption programs, restorative justice, meaning giving people, especially our youth, a second chance, not a life sentence. And reallocating the funds that we have is a way to do that. And to do that, we need to come together and have an advisory board of all of us. See, I'm not a politician, I'm one of you. I'm one of you that is concerned about our community, that want to make change. I've been out here fighting to create change and have been successful in doing so. But in this area, we have to all participate. We have to, we had something called See Something, Say Something. Well, we know how that went. So I've been talking with my community police officers about producing something else. Most of us have cameras and ring doorbells and this type of thing. So now we're at a point where we want lights, camera, action. That's my new motto. Not see something, say something, because we don't want retaliation. And that's notable because I've lived here all my life. But the new thing that I'm promoting is lights, camera, action. Because if we have lights on, that's a deterrent. If we record it, if everybody on our block becomes a unit and we record it, we can keep our blocks safe.
Okay, the next question is gonna be about affordable housing, equitable development and zoning reform. Ms. Bennett, what steps would you take to ensure affordable housing is accessible to all residents in District 1?
All right, housing, economic development, and zoning policies all play will go hand in hand. And we do need more housing units, but we need housing justice. And that means protecting renters, stopping displacement, and building pathways to ownership. No, not everybody does want ownership, but those that want it need to have the ability to have it. I would say I support affordable housing preservation zones to protect legacy residents and require affordability in new developments. Zoning must serve people, not profits. I will advocate for community-informed zoning that balances growth with neighborhood stability, because sometimes when they come in and they rezone things, they push everybody that's there out. We're looking at gentrification, and so we want to stop that. Economic development should empower small businesses and local workers, not just bring in outside chains and they have short-lived lives in our community. So I would be pushing for funding for small businesses and to pull out our 21st Street redevelopment project and get it going again.
Mr. Shazer?
You want to repeat the question?
What steps would you take to ensure affordable housing is accessible to all residents in District 1?
So the first thing I would want to do is, right now, an affordable home is classified at $175,000. We need to reclassify that number first of all, because $175,000 is not affordable to everyone. So let's take a look at that number. And then also there are some national programs that are looking at housing. In Wichita, we started a land bank system that failed. And it failed because there was no resources involved. So let's look at some of the other national programs that have worked. Land banking can work. That's when you no longer want your home. The home maybe belonged to grandma. We owe back taxes, and we just don't want this property. And the city has a program where you can just hand the property over to the city. That program has not been working because nobody has handed over their property. And so affordable housing, maybe we get back to another program a previous council member and I talked about doing what to do with grandma's house. How do we save houses from going to corporate developers? Because statistics show that the corporate developers, the corporate owners, they evict 3 to 4 times higher than someone that lives here in Wichita. And so that's adding on to the problem. Affordable housing, let's take a re-look at Section 8. Let's take another look at city housing. That worked for a while, but then when all those those people that lived in those homes were displaced and moved out south, we just made the problem worse. So let's take another look at, and then when they sold those homes, they sold them for $12 million. That $12 million could have been reinvested into areas where there are low home ownership numbers and where rent is too expensive. So people are willing to live in what we call the slumlord homes. So let's reinvest the money we got. That $12 million could have went a long way to help ownership. The people that were displaced could have been homeowners. They would have been homeowners and taxpayers. So let's just take a look at what we currently have. Let's not reinvent the wheel, but let's make the wheel better.
Mr. Shepherd?
So when we talk about housing and economic development, a couple things that the city is doing right now that I think is really important to expand on that work when elected, and that is renters' rights. Currently, Councilmember Hoheisel and Councilmember Johnson have been fighting for about a year on making sure that not just property owners have rights, but renters have rights as well. I'll give you an example. There was recently a community meeting about the Bleckley flooding, and when the question was posed, how did we know that this was going to happen and that construction was going to be happening on our block from 2025 to 2028? They said, oh, well, we didn't go door to door, but we notified some folks. Well, typically when folks are getting notified, it's the property owner. And what we do know is that not everyone who lives in their home is the owner of their home. But renters should have the right to know what is happening in their neighborhood and community, and they should have a right to protest and a right to say what is happening in their community as well. We also need to look at zoning policies, and we need to do an audit of our zoning policies, because what we are finding this year and over the last year and a half is that there are a lot of grandfathered policies that no longer fit the evolving diversity that we see in our world today. And by diversity, I'm not just talking racial diversity, I'm talking about neighborhood diversity, I'm talking about housing diversity. And speaking of housing diversity, we need to diversify the type of housing that is going into our communities to encourage density, to encourage that a single family or multifamily home can also belong in a neighborhood with an apartment complex as well, or a townhome or a duplex, which opens up the door for more options for individuals, regardless of income range, to go into those communities and be a part of that neighborhood. In regards to housing assistance, because I agree there are some folks who want that dream of owning a home, let's expand what's already at the city level, which is the down payment assistance program. But let's look at how we remove the red tape and roll out the red carpet so those who have a hard time navigating these systems feel like they can walk through the doors of City Hall, take advantage of those down payment assistance programs, and let's look at putting a special use in communities that do not have property owners. How do we increase that down payment assistance for certain zip codes or neighborhoods that do not have a lot of property owners to incentivize folks moving into that community? Last thing I will say is we need to look at the eviction process. We have one of the worst eviction processes in the state of Kansas. I'm willing to work with the Wichita Bar Association on that. And the last thing is we do have a program that supports local businesses and minority entrepreneurs. It's the Kansas Small Business Agreement that comes out of the Economic Development Office. WEBA, Create Campaign, they both received $100,000 to support minority and local entrepreneurs, and I would be a big proponent of expanding that to other organizations across the city as well.
What was the name of that again?
It's called the Kansas Business Service Agreement.
Okay, next question we'll talk about education, youth programming, and access to opportunity. LaWanda, how would you expand access to quality education and after-school programs for youth in District 1?
So, the rising cost of college is hitting everybody in the pocketbook. I was blessed that my loan was forgiven. I had been paying on my loan for 20 plus years, and it seemed like I was just on a hamster wheel. So, we're moving away from traditional education back to, there was a time when people graduated from high school and could get a job and take care of their families. So let's move people more towards plumbing, electricians. We talk about affordable homes. Let's teach our young people how to build these homes. Let's create those type of programs. Wichita Tech is doing an amazing job. They have scholarships right now that people are not even taking advantage of, and it gets back to communication. They don't know about these programs, and so education. Let's do something that we used to do, right? Let's get kids trained. So after high school, and Wichita Public Schools, they're making a big push towards that, having kids future ready once they graduate from high school. And then also our after school programs. Again, I did some research, and in the state of Kansas, we get over $4 billion in grant money, right? For different various things. That means there's 3,000 nonprofits doing work. Again, no accountability. I was with a program that could have done some amazing work, and we don't always have the right people in those programs. And so, but the funding that we are aware of that goes to these after school programs, again, it's back to accountability. When Kansas Health Foundation, Wichita, oh God, the word just left me. Community Foundation. When those organizations give out these funds, we got to start making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Or else we'll just keep having these after school programs where kids go day in and day out and we aren't making any progress. I'm a big proponent of grassroots organizations. Let's start giving those organizations the money that are really doing the work.
Exactly.
Boots on the ground. Let's make sure they start getting the funding.
Mr. Shepherd?
So I agree about the demographic cliff. I wrote a blog about this, and the demographic cliff is real, and that's just a fancy way to say folks are not going or choosing to pursue the four-year track anymore because of the financial debt that it often takes. But what I will tell you is that one of the biggest things and biggest opportunities that I think that we have to help young people find their way into giving back to their community while also getting on a track to a livable wage is service, civic engagement. No one ever told me that I could be paid to love my community, to give back to my community. No one ever told me that I could own something and I could build something, and that was also another way to build generational wealth. We often ask our children, what do you want to be? What do you want to work for? What company do you want to go into? And saying, did you know that you can create that? Did you know that you can become an entrepreneur and you could also break generational cycles of poverty in your life or build something and reinvest in the local economy as well as build for your family too? And so we really need to look at those pathways. My full-time job is serving as a previously chief of staff for a national nonprofit. Now I'm creating a new department within this national organization. We pay intergenerational leaders to go into their community to identify a challenge and to solve that challenge alongside the public and the private sector. What we have found, especially in Wichita, Kansas, is that post that program, they land full-time roles with that company or that organization. We have a young lady who's now working with the city of Wichita. I do believe, though, that it's a multi-pronged issue. And it has to be something that the school board can't handle on their own, the city can't handle on their own, the county can't handle on their own. So we need to not just talk about student outcomes or young people outcomes, we need to be talking about parent outcomes as well. And what programs and resources can we provide to these parents? My sister lives in 67214 with my nieces and nephews. And let me tell you, she didn't have an easy life, but she is a remarkable mother. And sometimes she doesn't find herself in the positions of spaces that I am. But that doesn't mean that she is not just as great, she's not just as smart, she's not just as passionate. But I guarantee you that if we had resources that alleviated some of the burdens like quality and affordable childcare, then that could change the trajectory of the position that she is in. And let me be very clear, this isn't about feeling sorry for people like my sister. Her story ends well, and many, many others do too. But what about maximizing their potential? So we have to just stop talking about youth development programs and also start talking about maximizing resources. The other thing historically is we had a youth advocacy coalition, and we're bringing that back. The problem is we need everybody in the room, but we need collaboration over competition. This is not about who is doing it right or who is doing it best. It's what are we all doing And where are the gaps amongst what we're already doing? And realizing that no nonprofit organization, no governmental entity can solve it all. We've got to work together. And that's why I'm focused on moving onward together.
Okay. Next question involves government transparency and civil trust. Mr. Shepherd?
Absolutely. Government transparency is.
Question, oh.
Oh,
That was
Lord
just
have
a-
mercy.
That's just a topic. That's just a topic. The question is, what measures would you take to improve transparency?
Oh,
Would you like me to answer that question?
Wait a minute.
No,
she didn't get to the previous one.
Oh, I didn't get you. I'm sorry, Ajane. Oh, hey,
Definitely not too quiet.
my head, not my heart. Okay.
So we were talking about access to education and youth programs.
Yes,
That's
yes.
what we were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, my thing is, our young people deserve more than survival. They deserve enrichment, mentorship, and opportunity. And I'll fight to expand funding for after-school programs, job training, arts, STEMs, and mental health services for our youth, especially in our underserved neighborhoods. We need continued, dedicated, committed partnerships with USD 259, with local colleges and nonprofits to make education accessible to every stage, from early childhood to adult learners. We need to rally our communities. It's time for us to think about taking care of ourselves. We have plenty of retired teachers, educators in our community that can reach out and form units to help our children. So I'll be promoting things of that nature. And we need to form when I'm elected, I will create a community accountability board that reviews where this money is going, because it happens all the time. The funds go to the same people over and over and over and over. But do we see results? No. So on my watch, that's gonna change. I hear, we talk about all these programs that you've heard about today from my opponents. Did you know anything about them before then? No. And so what we need is education about the education and opportunities that are actually available to us. We cannot participate in what we don't know about. So that's my thing. I will be making sure that we have access to the knowledge that this is available, so that we can take advantage of what is available.
And then do you qualify?
Right, well, we'll let you know if it's available, what the qualifications are for you to qualify.
A lot of programs are available, but do you qualify?
But first you gotta know they're there, and then we can go from there, you know? How do we do that? We do it internally, we do it ourselves. We cannot depend on government for everything. And once I'm elected, I need your vote, but I still need you. I don't need you to disappear, because I need your voice. I need you telling me, what are the issues? What do I need to be working on? What do I need to present? Because again, District 1 is the heart of Wichita. And when the heart is not healthy, the body is not healthy. And District 1 has been neglected in too many ways for far too long, especially in the area of education and accessibility. So we will change that. Yes, yes.
LaWanda, you got 1 minute to.
Okay, so one of the things when we talk about giving these nonprofits funds, it always has been a barrier. You have to be 501c3, you have to have been in service for so long. We gotta remove some of those barriers. If an organization's been doing the work, like Ms. Juanita said, we gotta remove some of the red tape. It shouldn't be. And not only remove the red tape, let's really ensure that the dollars are doing what they are supposed to do. I said it earlier, accountability matters. When we give out these funds, it matters, accountability.
Thank you. Okay, the next topic, government transparency and civic trust. Mr. Shepherd, what measures would you take to improve transparency and accountability in local government?
Well, right now you have the ethics policy. I'd be willing to sit down and look at how we can strengthen that ethics policy. I'd also would like to look at how we reformat the district advisory boards to ensure that they are equitably representative of the entire district. And we talked about teeth, and I think that gets very tricky because there's legality that comes with adding teeth to boards and or different things of that nature in which folks are being held accountable if they say something or do something. And we know that the city has had its fair share of lawsuits, and taxpayers have been very clear that they don't like that. But looking at how do we give the district advisory board the level of accountability that they need to hold their council member accountable, whoever it may be. The other thing is that we need to be very communicative in many different ways beyond just the digital world of what is happening in local government, who is involved, and the impact that it has. I think one of the biggest mistakes public servants make is they do not mobilize their opinion. The second mistake that we make is we misinform people. I have done my due diligence from the time this has started, this race, and I give you my word until the end that I have no desire to put misinformation out about any of my opponents or about the city, because what that does is it causes division, it causes chaos, and it gets in the way of us actually focusing on the kitchen table issues that we need to be focused on. I don't have time to fight with my opponents. I want affordable housing, I want economic development, I want to make sure everybody's getting a fair shot and a fair shake at achieving their version of the Wichita or American dream that they want. So we have to make sure that we are also giving the work back to ourselves and being accountable and modeling ourselves as an example, while also looking at strengthening policies like the ethics policy, reporting what organizations or businesses that stand to benefit from us being elected. When we have to file to run, we have to file that interest form, the substantial interest form. We need to continue to renew that every single year we are on that bench, because we know that as you are an elected official, relationships and connections grow. And so what we need to do is be open and honest about that, and then put it in writing where people can access it. And the last idea that I have is creating a dashboard. When you look at Minnesota, they have a dashboard where you can see everything from health disparities to involvement for elected officials, and it is public knowledge and it's easy to access. You don't have to go through 50 different channels to get to it. So that's something that we need to look at adopting in the city of Wichita as well.
Ms. Bennett?
Civic engagement and government accountability. I believe in transparency, inclusive government that doesn't just respond to the people, it involves the people. I will create a District 1 Neighborhood Accountability Council to advise on development safety and budget decisions, and to hold us accountable. Just as I did in my own community, we created the Northeast Mid-Lair Neighborhood Accountability Council, made up of residents in the community, pastors in the community, and I would do the same thing. I support participatory budgeting and open data dashboards, as Mr. Shepherd has spoken of, so that residents can see where dollars go and shape what gets funded. You have a voice. Civic engagement should not be seasonal. I'll work year-round to build trust, educate voters, and keep government connected to the community, just as I've been doing for the past 3 years.
Mr. Shazier?
Can you repeat the question?
What measures would you take to improve transparency and accountability in local government?
So, we know that recently our city manager got a raise, and his annual salary is now $252,000. And the community was like, why? There was no measures in place, and I'm not picking on him, but that's a good example. There were no performance measures that were openly seen. There was no accountability as to why an 18% raise was given. And that should trickle down to every department within the city. We gotta have some performance measures. It gets back to the budget, it gets back to everything that the city does, everything that we do to enact with the city's accountability. When we talk about transparency, yes, the city put in some great measures. We do have an ethics board, but unfortunately, we also pick who's on those boards, and sometimes we have seen that issues that have gone to the ethics board, they said, and they threw it out. They didn't follow up, they didn't, and if they said that somebody had violated an ethics complaint, there was still nothing done about it. So what is the point? We see that dashboards only work if they work. Sedgwick County put up a dashboard when we had the incident with, over at the juvenile detention when a young man lost his life. They put all these measures into place and they put this dashboard up so you can see what's going on. And we find out nothing has really happened. The needle hasn't moved, so I don't want us to rely on something pretty that we give out to the public. Even our budget, when we talk about making sure that we are accountable and we feel civically connected, when we got the dashboard for the budget, it was already set up for us. We had to decide what they decided was important to us. It wasn't just here's a blank check, what should the budget look like, nor was it, this is what we previously spent on these items, what's important to you. We got a dashboard that told us what was important. So for us to feel more connected, for us to be able to trust the city government, any form of government, we got to get people back involved, and you got to do it at day one. You can't do this big body of work and then come back and say, what do you think about it? And then we tell you what we think about it and nothing changes. An example is the city budget. We see it in, June, July. They tell you to work on it, give you this tool, and come August, that same budget is passed. How is that accountability? How is that building trust with the community? So again, we gotta get the community involved on these major issues day one if they really wanna be connected. And we do have to have some teeth in some policies. Other than that, it does us no good. If there's a policy and we can't hold anybody accountable, it's not a policy. Thank you.
1 minute, Mr. Shepherd.
I think a lot of the things that we're talking about here are valid. I agree that, dashboards are only as good as the folks who are willing to follow through with the things on the dashboard. I want to be very mindful, though. There were some things done with the Cedric Lofton case. Not all the things, and I'm sure some folks might feel like it was not progress. I agree, we can do more, and that I think that Cedric Lofton's death was a tragedy. The murder was a tragedy, and folks should be held accountable. I also would be remiss if I did not say that we all know the legal system slows things down. It makes it complicated. It creates barriers for us to navigate those things. When we talk about people's salaries, I want to be very mindful of that too, because that is an HR protocol. I mean, every good business should have KPIs, key performance indicators. But for me, my employees or my colleagues don't get to look at where I fell in that and what conversations look like between me and my boss. That's a me and my boss conversation, and whether or not I qualified for a PIP or whether or not I qualified for a raise. And those conversations, I think, need to happen, but we have to be very mindful that they happen in practical ways that do not violate legality and they do not violate HR protocol, because we don't want someone to turn around and then sue us for violating those things. And so I want to be very mindful of that, because we have to talk about what we can do within practical, reasonable terms. And I'm not saying that community transparency in that regard is not possible, but we have to be real about the HR and legalities of the situation too.
And I do want to say that the Supreme Court just ruled that the lawyers can move forward with Cedric Lofton's case. So that's a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah, and the system is slow.
It is very
But
slow.
when we talk about
Yeah, we're gonna get questions here in a little bit.
But we talk about what was done after juvenile detention is different than what's being done in the courts. Two totally different issues.
All right.
And there's
let me
been
say
progress
this.
made.
That is why
Two totally
we
different
need
issues.
this District 1 Neighborhood Accountability Council. Because if we're not at the table, there will be no accountability.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's my goal, to create that accountability council, because without it, there is no governing body. They will police themselves, and we know how that works out.
Okay. The next topic is gonna be about reparations and racial equity in public policy.
I'll take that one first, I guess.
What-
since you
what-
didn't say who.
That's a topic.
That's a topic. All right, Ms. Bennett, the question is, what does racial equity mean to you, and how would you prioritize it in your policy decisions?
Equity means making sure that those who historically had the least receive what they need to thrive, and what they deserve. Not just extra, but justice. Reparations aren't just about the past. They're about correcting the present by directing resources into Black communities harmed by redlining, environmental racism, and underinvestment. And I support forming a local reparations commission to explore policy, property, and budget equity for Black Wichita residents. When it comes to that, Black communities have been on the red line far too long. And it is time, we need equity in how public dollars are spent in parks, sidewalks, health, access, education, business. We need it in every area. So when I think reparations, it's a total package. We're not thinking about a check. We're thinking about the quality of life that we live in this community and in this nation.
Thank you. Mr. Shazier?
So along those lines, reparations, again, doing the research. There are a lot of cities that are taking on reparations within their cities and seeing what can we do to rectify some things that have been done, some harm that has been done. Our own city of Wichita, Woody hasn't taken up the mantle. It went to the DEI board, it went to the mayor, it went to the whole city council, and it was pretty much kicked out. It's not dead in the water, but it was kicked out, saying that it should be handled on the federal level. Well, we live here in Wichita, and we need to take care of Wichitans. And the city, they help to pay for an exhibit that outlined redlining. So the city has some ownership, some recent ownership in what was done, or else they would not have helped to pay for the whole exhibit. So, talking about what can reparations look like, it is housing equality, it is education, civic engagement, our health, our environmental justice, even criminal justice. All of those things come under the umbrella of reparations, and we can do better because we know the things that have been done. We don't have to rehash the history lesson. We all know the history lesson. So let's bring in some funding. Like I said, that $12 million that the city got from selling those houses, it could have gone to, again, those that were affected by redlining and all those other things. The fact that we were not able to do testing, environmental justice, we've been waiting for over a year. Who's going to pay for it? The state, the city, the county. Again, we have those funds. Let's reallocate the funds to do some things that need to be done. We could have been doing testing a year ago and getting baseline to make sure people aren't getting worse. Right now, the longer we wait, the worse it gets. So I think that we can do a better job in-house. And again, that phrase, what can we do? How can we do more without expending the budget more? But bear in mind, the city does have a rainy day fund with millions of dollars in it that could actually go towards reparations right now, today. So, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, let's make the wheel better.
Can you repeat that question, Elder?
What does racial equity mean to you, and how would you prioritize it in your policy decisions?
So racial equity means to me that not everybody is getting the same thing, but everybody is getting what works best for them to ensure that they can play at the same rate and on the same playing field. I said earlier, what works here is not going to work in another neighborhood, and what works in that neighborhood may not work, in another neighborhood. And I think that's what equity looks like. Equity is not saying we all get a pencil and you can use that pencil. There may be someone who may not be visually cognizant or able to see, so they may need additional assistance. Equity calls for us to look at the unique circumstances of each community, each person, and say, how do we utilize our resources to at least give them a fair shot and a fair shake to compete on the same level? And so that's what equity looks like for me. And when it comes to equity, there's equity that needs to be done across the entire city of Wichita, particularly in some others more than others. When we think about back in the 1930s, 12% of the population was black, but only 2 qualified for home loans, that's a problem. When we can put a map, and a lot of people don't like history lessons, but I think when you are building consensus, there are folks on the bench who don't understand this because they've not had to live it. They've not had to walk in our shoes. And so taking the time to respectfully and meaningfully engage with those folks who do not get it and assume good intent, even though it may make you frustrated. Trust me, I get real frustrated when I have to defend my humanity. But sometimes that's necessary to move the needle. So we have to be consensus builders and explain the detrimental impacts that redlining has had on our community. We talk about how it impacted us in terms of affordable housing, but it impacted us in many more ways. It impacted our quality of life. It impacted infant mortality. It impacted the entire social determinants of health. And so we have to be very mindful of that. But here's what we need to do. We don't need to touch that reserves fund. The reserves fund is being used as this to offset some of the deficits that we saw, along with the interest that we saw coming in as well. My proposal is that when the city won't do, the community must. So my proposal is to partner with the Wichita Foundation to create an endowment fund that accrues interest, that builds money in so we can offset some of these costs, to do a study for reparations when the city won't budge, so we can move forward on our own, to look at how we can innovate and provide a fund to say, look, this neighborhood is blighted. How do we create aligned incentives for if you fix the front part of your home, then we'll give you the money to offset that cost. We need to look at how we as a community can come together and invest in ourselves when government and the city won't.
Let me just say this. As far as the Diversity, Inclusion, and Civil Rights Board, Advisory Board, they voted to send the reparation ordinance to the City Council. From what I've been told by Councilman Johnson, they will be looking at and putting it on the agenda, hopefully next month, to discuss said ordinance. So we're gonna see.
Hold on, I have a question.
Questions are gonna be right in a few minutes, Mr. Barfield. We have maybe 2 more topics that we're gonna discuss, and then we're gonna go to the audience to do question and answers. I wanna go back to reparations. Question is, how would you engage the community in discussions about reparations and address historical inequalities in District 1? Ms. Bennett?
The same way we've been doing it, Mary, grassroots. I contact people personally and I bring them together as units and we discuss what's going on in all of this. And I'd like to see neighborhood associations connected to where their residents are bringing their members to those meetings. But I've had several of those meetings. The thing is, I need engagement from the community. When I look at my community, we are not very civically
That's my question.
We are not civically engaged.
With USD 259.
And it's like I tell everyone, we're not bound in chains anymore. It's done with an ink pen. And if we are not accountable, we need to be accountable to be civically educated. Wichita Independent Neighborhood Association, right now we are putting together curriculum to teach civic engagement to the Black community. But will you come? I beg you to come. Come. Because we need to understand. You can't fight what you don't understand. That's right. So first steps is to implore the community, young and old, to come out and learn what is the responsibility of the officials of this city. What is the responsibility of state officials, federal officials? Don't just elect them by name recognition or whatever, Democratic Party, Republican Party. Know your candidate and understand civic engagement. That's the first step.
Thank you. Mr. Shazier?
So we have to start reaching people where they are. go on Facebook, let's go on social media, and that's it. And we expect everybody to know everything. We're finding out that doesn't work. We gotta go back old school. I remember I said, we're not gonna reinvent the wheel, we're gonna make it better. Old school, let's knock some doors. I was part of a group that knocked doors, whether it was effective or not, that knocked doors telling people that they were gonna be inspecting neighborhoods for backyard wells, right? We can do that times 10. We gotta reach people where they are. Young people, now we do know we wanna educate some 21-year-olds. We're gonna have to go to TikTok, we're gonna have to go to Snap, we gotta go to some other medias that actually work for them. But we gotta do multifaceted types of reach out. Knocking on doors, first and foremost, I believe will work. And we have to also remember that everybody that will be affected doesn't live in 67214. We gotta be willing to go outside the box to reach these people. So we gotta be willing to go. There's 400,000, 500,000 people in Wichita. It's gonna be a lot of door knocking, but if we really wanna be effective, we gotta put in the work and do the work to make sure that people know what's going on and to get involved. When we did the issue with the swimming pool, we did an amazing job of talking to people. We packed City Hall out, right? So we can keep up that type of measure, and it gotta be ongoing. For that pool issue, it just went on and on and on and on until everybody was involved. And so we gotta do the same thing. We gotta educate, keep hitting them. We can't knock doors one time and say, hey, everybody got the information. We gotta stay at it to get everybody ground level involved, and then we take to the next level.
Mr. Shepherd.
I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We cannot preach to the choir. And so we have to bring other people in to understand the importance of reparation. And I'm somebody, and I've been scolded for it, and that's fine, who has been somebody who has multiple people in my life who don't look like me, walk like me, talk like me, vote like me, worship like me. And I think that that's been to my benefit. I've been able to broaden my perspective, but also add perspective to the lives of other people who do not understand the importance of something like reparations because they don't have that lived experience. I think what we need to do is we have to get our community together to understand why this is important. Because there are even some folks in our own community who don't understand why it's important, which is why I believe history is important. But then also we have to go outside of our own community to engage different people. Listen, if you want to scold me for sitting down and having a libation with a Republican, that's fine. But know that at the end of the day, the topic on the table will be reparations and how we can work together and build consensus for the common good so that my community can win. And that doesn't make me a sellout. It doesn't make anybody a sellout because you've got to work across different factions to move the needle for progress. That's how local government works. Doesn't mean your values have to change. And so I think when we talk about this, that's what you're gonna see me do. You're gonna see me engaging with people who look like me, but people who don't look like me, and relating the issue to something that they can feel, that they know has impacted them, so that way they understand the importance of showing up for other people. We talk about knocking on doors, and I think that that's great. I think in practice, we've heard those promises before, and we need to be consistent with that, but we also have to mobilize other people outside of public servants to be on the doors. No one person, I don't care who's elected, can do it on their own. Not one person can do it on their own. And so it's important to support whoever's in this seat to ensure that they get that support. And that's my commitment because I care about my community. If it's me, great, thank you, Lord. If it's somebody else, how can I support you? How can I get on the doors? And how can I ensure my community benefits from the things that we need done, like reparations?
Thank you. All right, that is our segment for what I wanted to ask. And now it's open to the public. And Sheila, your hand has been up, so what is your question?
This is directed to all three candidates. And how will you stay accountable to the residents of this district once you're elected? You all talked about accountability. I want to know how you will stay accountable, absent the fact that we're there to make you. What are your volunteer or your willingness to do in order to make that happen and have it continued?
Like I said, I will continue to do what I've been doing for the last 3 years. Open and honest transparent to the community. Everything that I've done, every meeting I've had, every information I've found out, I've given it to the public. Visibility, you can see what I do. And I will continue to do that. I will be amongst the people. I'm not a politician, I'll say that again. I'm one of you. And so I'm among you now, I'm fighting with you now, that won't change. I will not just have district advisory board breakfasts, yes, that'll be something that I do, but I will have, continued town halls for my district to come and tell me what's going on in our world. Things that I need to address. This will not be a government of just speaking for the people. I need the people to be involved.
So for me, I've been sitting on the District 1 Advisory Board as long as Councilman Johnson has been serving. And so that would be day one, that board would be revamped. I know the city has some ordinances and some things you have to follow, but if that board can't be revamped, I'm gonna create another board or another organization because we should be doing more than getting zone cases every month. And we should be doing more than saying, yes, you can build a newer house, or no, you can't, or anything. We should be knowing what's gonna be on the city agenda every Tuesday. We should be knowing what's going on the workshop every month, in case some of us may wanna go to the workshop. And when I appoint people to these boards, we're gonna see those people. I've never seen, I don't really know who all has been appointed to different boards for the city, because they never come back and give an account of themselves. And so I will hold all those appointees, again, accountable. If you don't come back at least to the DAB once a month and give us a synopsis of what's going on, if you don't shoot out an email saying, hey, this big project is coming up to for a zoning case and you might want to go and tell your constituents about it, then they should be in those positions. We gotta appoint people that really do the job they've been appointed to do, and we gotta report out. Because again, if you go to a meeting and nobody ever hears what happened, then what's the point? And so, I really would want to revamp the District 1 Advisory Board, and maybe create another accountability board. But again, we gotta quit putting people in those positions just as a showpiece. We gotta stop doing it to build resumes. We gotta stop.
So the first thing that I would do is, let's talk about the District Advisory Board. I would relinquish my control to chair that board, and I would give it over to a member of the District Advisory Board to not only be the chair of the board and run those meetings, but to also engage with me and to reach a consensus on what should be on those agendas every month. Keeping in mind, though, we hear policy cases and we hear ordinance cases and we hear from the city at those meetings because they are on a timeline. And we want to make sure that our community is getting their voices involved. So I don't want to delay process in terms of zoning, whether we vote yes or no, but I do think that there's an opportunity to create room for that chair to say what other topics, per what you have heard from the community, need to be on this agenda this month, and create a dedicated section on that agenda. And I would move it to the top of that agenda so that folks don't have to be there all night to sit and listen through all the cases, because what we do know is that time is of the essence and folks are tired, but they want to be engaged, but they don't always have the wherewithal to be engaged. So how do we make it easier for them? One thing that I love is folks know where to find me. They know where to find me all the time, for better or worse. They know I'm in a coffee shop when I'm not at my office, and they'll roll up to that coffee shop and find me. So it's moving outside of working at Atwater Neighborhood Center or City Hall, being rooted and working in community remotely so that folks know how to reach you. Great, if you can schedule an appointment with me, absolutely. But if you want to see me at the drop of a dime, I think that should be available to you as well. I work for the people, I respond to the people, and the people should be able to reach me when they can. Performance measurements also need to be included, and that's something that I would do for the DAB. Every year, the DAB would be responsible for a performance measurement, and then included in that performance measurement would be performance improvement plan on things that I can do better to grow as a leader for not just one specific area of the district, but all areas of the district. And that would require them to get out of their ivory towers and engage their respective communities, which is why it's important to have a diverse slate of folks on the DAB.
Okay, just to piggyback
Can I
on
say
that
something?
performance measure.
Can I say something quick? I stop when I'm supposed to stop. Can I get like 10 seconds?
And we've all been going over.
I have been.
We've all been going over.
Yeah.
This is
I
unique
have
to one
been
person.
boots on the grounds for the last 20-some years, if not more. I lose count. So being out in the community, being seen, being visible is what I've been doing. I've served on many, many boards, and I've always tried to get that information out, so that would not stop. Boots on the grounds, that's what I have been doing.
We talk about community policing, it's community grassroots politicking, I guess you would call it. Because I'm out there in the trenches, I'm talking to the people, you know what I'm saying? So I'm a community kind of girl.
Yes, I would agree.
Mr. Barfield?
Yeah, I have some different set of questions. As you all know, the city manager will be gone as of December 31st. Now, there are some people on the council that would like to change our form of government to a strong mayor without city manager. How do you each feel about that?
No, it needs to remain a county or a city manager structure, not a manager strong system. Or a mayor strong system, I'm sorry, two ends.
Okay.
I would agree with Joseph with that, because we need checks and balances.
We don't really have that right now.
That's why we need to be,
Okay.
I need to be
I
up
wanna
there.
make that clear. The city manager does everything.
See, that's what's
There's
important.
no oversight.
Who you put there, who is the city manager? And then how do you monitor that city manager?
Again, been doing research. I would stick with the strong city manager, but we have to change some things because there hasn't been the accountability that people have been wanting to see. Yes, ma'am? Okay. There are no checks and balances. We've seen it. We go to city council meetings today, and you ask the city council person a question, and they say, Mr. Manager, what do you say? So we need better checks and balances. I don't think we should have a mayor, a strong mayor, because again, I think it would be even worse, because the mayor would run everything, unless we had a strong city council. So I would stick with the city manager.
And to me, it's more so about the qualifications to run a city, right? Depending on who's in, I don't care who you are, I wanna make sure that you have done put some time in before you start making decisions on my quality of life. And then I also would say, yeah, I mean, we can add some checks and balances, but that comes down to the city council has one employee. That's the city manager. So when you talk about accountability, the folks up there are responsible for holding that city manager, whoever he or she may be, accountable. And it's about asking the hard questions.
And that hasn't been
Did he
happening.
get his raise after he found out he was leaving, or?
No, it's
Before.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question. You talk about 40% of our budget goes to law enforcement.
Police, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, here's a question that nobody ever asks, but it's very important, especially for District 1 council person.
Yes, sir.
What percentage of the budget goes back into the black community?
I would definitely have to do some research on that, and I would ask for you to define what you mean by that, because one could say, right, that $100,000 that I spoke to earlier about the Kansas Service Business Agreement for both WEBA and Create Campaign, they support black entrepreneurs, but I don't know if they're particularly serving consistently in District 1. I know many of them do, but I think we would really need to define what that looks like.
Okay, well, I'm talking about in terms of black businesses.
Yeah, I would definitely, I didn't want to give you an answer that is not correct, so I'm gonna humble myself and say I can't give you an answer right now.
How about you?
Yeah, I couldn't give an answer, but I can tell you this, I drive around in the historical black communities, and I look at pictures from the 90s, and nothing's changed. As a matter of fact, it's worse.
Thank you.
It's worse,
Thank you.
and so yes.
about you?
Absolutely. When we look at the community, it tells you how much money has been spent.
Okay, now, I'm gonna ask this third question right quick. We've had District 1 representatives for well over 20 years, almost 30 years. We've got more empty buildings in District 1 now than we did back before we had district representation. So, therefore, it shows me that basically we've been focusing all this time on social issues. And we've had very little improvement in social issues. But the number one issue for black community is economics. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody has talked about it on the council in all these years. Economics will solve most of the problems that we're dealing with. And yet we're absolutely silent. And not only the city, but the state level. And it bothers me that we got a governor that runs around bragging about the fact that she's got $2 plus $6 billion surplus. And yet all these African American communities throughout the state of Kansas have food deserts and every other kind of desert, business desert, and everything else. Now the last thing I want to say is this. I want to talk about affordable housing. We've got a problem that none of you all have addressed. I understand, as well as all of you do, that affordable housing is beyond the reach of most of the people in District 1. But yet, at the same time, every year, for the last 20 years, we've been abandoning and bulldozing houses that could be rehabbed, and could be excellent facilities at $65,000 to $75,000 for people that for first-time home buyers. Okay? These are issues that we need to be dealing with. Nobody's dealing with. Let me just tell you, it's a new day. Okay, it's a new day for politics. You all see what's happening all over the country. You see what just happened in New York, the mayor's race.
Yep.
Okay, things are happening. The old ways of doing things, of doing business, are going out the window.
Do you want to address that
new
to?
people with new ideas?
Do you want to address that to the candidates, Mr. Shazier?
Well,
Are you finished?
well, go ahead.
I want to get a question in there too.
On affordable housing, I encourage everyone to please review the District 1 Advisory Board meetings. I have spoken up and talked against bulldozing houses over and over and over again. And a lot of the times, I was on an island by myself. You look at the Fairmont neighborhood, those homes would have been perfect examples of rehabs and affordable homes. We just see recently that Habitat has changed their model. They bought those city homes, and what are they doing? They're rehabbing them. And so, yes, this is a new day. We gotta do things differently. I talked to a pioneer in the housing industry, and he's like, LaWanda, there's a lot into this rehabbing, right? But it can be done. We gotta use our code enforcement, our codes that already exist. We gotta use city departments that exist to help make those things possible. We don't have to bulldoze a home. When somebody can't fix up their home and they get the little orange sticker and they get their house bulldozed, they also get a bill for getting their house bulldozed. So since they're gonna get a bill anyway, let's give them a bill to rehab their own home. Why not do that? They're gonna make payments anyway, if at all, but somebody gotta pay to get a bulldoze. So yes, we can do some different things. We can do some things differently to help with the shortage. $175,000 is not attainable, and the red tape is not attainable.
These homes that are being torn down, city council has to approve that. It goes to the city council person of that district, and they decide whether their house gets torn down or not. We can go all the way back. It's a way of I see it as a way of the city acquiring more property. You could go back to the urban renewal projects. That was many, many years ago. If they put $10,000 in that house 30 years ago, when that house is inherited by the next person, the next generation, they want their money back if they sell that house. Even though what they've done is depreciate. So there needs to be a committee that's looking at funding. And I think Levanta had left some funds, because we need a fund that is going to help our residents with legalities, first of all. Sometimes they need to see an attorney. Sometimes things are tied up in probate court. We need to have funds to help, and an organization to help them resolve those problems. Once that has been resolved, we need to have a fund that is going to help them restore that property. Because you're gonna pay a bill, like Luanda said, whether they tear it down or whether they restore it. So why not use those same funds for restoration instead of tearing it down, unless you have an ulterior motive? That's what's going on. But on my watch, we'll be looking to do just the things I said. Implement funds for people to be able to access attorneys at an affordable cost, to get resolved whatever's going on in probate, or whatever's going on sometimes with the city itself. And then have funds to restore that property to meet the guidelines so that it's not condemned. That's what needs to happen.
All right, I'm on the next question.
I'll be very quick, because I need to wait this one. I couldn't agree more with Ms. Ajane about having that support available for legal purposes. When I was student body president over a decade ago at Wichita State University, we found that students were running into financial hardships and difficulties, being evicted from their homes because they did not even have legal representation. So we started a legal aid clinic in collaboration with the Wichita Bar Association. This is something that I'm wanting to bring to the city of Wichita. It is on my website. I talk about the plan to partner with the Wichita Bar Association, because she's right. Folks don't know what to do. And if they don't know what to do, they shouldn't be booted out their home. They shouldn't become homeless. They should be guided through the process of how they can advocate for themselves. And that's something that we can do, because there are lawyers who will do work pro bono and who will honor the client attorney privilege, so that way all of their business is not out in the open as well, because that's important as well. We do have, again, a down payment assistance program. I did talk about that, and I talked about how we needed to grow that fund, but also reduce a lot of the expectations and qualifications for that fund. And we also have a restoration fund that we need to do the same thing for. Increase that fund and reduce the barriers to get access to those funds. Why do I have to check 15 freaking boxes to qualify for this loan or this money? I'm trying to do my part as a good neighbor. I've lived in this community, I've purchased my home, I've paid my property taxes, and now I'm down on my luck, especially our veterans. So how do we look at working within our city to, again, add on and limit the barriers that exist to get access to some of these things? Other than that, I agree with much of what my opponents have already said.
That's why I said earlier, the workshop, what to do with Grandma's house. And I have worked with an organization, and we've done it year after year. We bring attorneys in. We've already done it. I've already been a part of a process of bringing attorneys in, pro bono, doing the work. So it won't be something new. It'll be something that I've already been a part of.
All right. Okay, you guys are in the district right now, and I just want to say that all three of you would make great candidates for the city of Wichita. Yes. I think we're very lucky to have a good pool of candidates. I am the president of A. Price Woodard Neighborhood Association, which is this community that you're in right now. We're currently undergoing the community revitalization and beautification project. Me and my grandchildren have flyered this whole neighborhood all the way from 13th and Kansas all the way up to Hillside with the flyers. Please keep A. Price Woodard clean and safe. And we're starting the prize patrol. So we're not just talking about it. We're doing the work of trying to get neighbors and citizens together to clean up their blocks. Of course, we're asking too, what are the resources that you need? Why can't you cut your grass? What's keeping you from edging your curbs? Why can't we see your sidewalk? These are the questions that have overextended our community for so long, but I want to know, in addition to that, I've also been meeting with the Ministerial League for the Adopt Two Blocks program. Trying to get the churches to adopt 2 blocks in their neighborhood. We have a plethora of churches right here in our own community.
Every corner.
And if every church adopted 2 blocks, and we're just talking about the exteriors of their home, you know, that would be the pilot project to, you know, what can we do to improve your yard? What resources do you need? So that, I just presented a flyer, a survey. I just sent it to Pastor DeShazer. I'm working with him to try to get this program off the ground. But the Prize Patrol has judges that are going up and down the block to see the initial process of what the neighborhoods look like and seeing if there's any improvements. We're then trying to give that block a block party that wins with prizes. I've got the city to, working with Brooke to have a street cleaner come and clean that whole street. What prizes are you willing to get to help with this? And then the other question is, the community cleanup challenge has been going on in its 6th year. What would you do as a city council person to ensure that this program continues to go on 7th year, 8th year, 9th year? What could you do to help promote the community cleanup challenge?
Yeah, what drives political will is community will. And so I think a lot of people oftentimes feel like they don't have the power, but they do. So I would use whatever capital that I have as a council member to promote this, but also utilizing some of the city budget, particularly that postage itemized budget, to send out the flyers to make sure that they get that information in the homes or the blocks or the radius in which this project is happening. And then the second thing is bringing in other neighborhood associations to look at this as a model to see how it can be replicated in other parts of the city, not just in District 1. Because I think, again, when you are a council member, you're representing that district, yes, but you're also making decisions a part of the entire city. And so we've got to learn how to lean on our strengths and collaborate across community in District 1, but also other districts better. So I would also do that. And to your question about what I would do in terms of prizes, you let me know what you need, and I'll do my best to tell you whether or not I can make that happen. But please know that I am committed, and I did see a sign near St. Paul AME Church, and so I will talk to my pastor this Sunday about us getting involved.
Looks like that sign has been missing.
Really? I saw it. I just saw it.
They put it back up?
Maybe the folks who cut the grass removed it and then put it back.
Well, I know a lot of them with the storm, they didn't.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
But the thing is that when they are missing, I've been the one that's been funding these.
Yeah.
And people take them, or if the wind blows them, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Juanita, and that touches on the last point of like what I talked about, the community endowment fund.
Yeah.
You know, there are too many community members who are shelling out of their pockets to support their neighborhoods and communities.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. They love their community, but the economy being what it is right now, a lot of people are worried. We've got to step up and find a way to create aligned incentives to support or reimburse folks who are doing that.
Yeah.
If you're cutting down a tree in your neighborhood, great, thank you for being a good citizen, but that's also on the role of local government. So how does local government acknowledge that and compensate for that? If we can offer rebate programs for certain lawnmowers that folks buy, we can offer programs for folks who are shelling out of their pocket to uplift their neighborhood and beautify their communities as well.
So, I just have a comment. Again, you guys are doing an excellent job, and thank you for the invite. I'm here for 2 different things, but thank you for the invite, Ms. Dean, regarding the town hall. First of all, I'd like to say, one, being a retired educator, I've done post-secondary work for the last 36 years, and hearing the question, or hearing the comments about educating our young people to go back to college or make sure they're staying in school. Wichita State has a plethora of programs that does just that, but I'm not so sure how our community is actually becoming engaged with those programs, and it's all free. Having been the director of the Homework Assistance Program, actually it's an after-school program. We're in that program for like 6 years in Wichita State. So I know a lot about how we educate young people and get young people engaged in education. I think one of the things that you guys talked about is having the community know about the programs and how their students can benefit from them. So Wichita State has, I think it's like 9 TRIO programs that's funded by the federal government. They've been in place, this is year 60 for Upward Bound. And so there's opportunities there to help students if they want it, and parents. So today we have EOC, it's Educational Opportunity Center. This program is specifically for adults 19 and older who want to go back to school, either complete their GED or to start a certificate program at WSUTAC or get a bachelor's degree from Wichita State. So there are programs, it doesn't cost you anything, it is free. So there are things that are available to our community to help with some of the things that you're talking about today. You know, old school, you went to college because that increased your life, it changed your life, it changed the trajectory of your life, and that's still true today. If we're really honest, it's still true today.
Yeah.
So education can help you.
We need to get back to what
Yeah, we
Juanita's
need to get
question
back
was.
to the community revitalization, beautification
So,
aspect.
one of the things that I've been really thinking about with your program, or just to clean up, the neighborhood cleanups, we get them once a year, which is amazing. But unfortunately, old mattresses, old sofas, old tires, they come up more than once a year. And so I would really want to take a look at how we can improve that program. Again, it already exists, how can we make it better? Bringing out the dumpsters, you know,
We're
spring,
actually,
fall.
we're working on that. With
Make-
Pastor Shea.
Make it happen, and like I say, in all the communities. When we did our neighborhood cleanup, that tire truck got full so fast, and that mattress truck got full so fast, but, you know, you get one shot, and that's it. And then after the storm, we had all the tree limbs, right? Free dump day. Dang, how am I gonna get my limbs to the dump? I don't have a truck, right? And so keeping our communities clean, again, would take a bigger effort, getting us all involved. I like what WPD is doing right now, is giving out the light bulbs to certain areas, make sure everybody has a light on their porch. That's something that we maybe could do along the cleanup trail, give out some light bulbs, just not as a prize, just because, you know, enhance that program. And as far as gifts, you know, I have the gift of gab. Again, I may just write a check, I don't know, but I will help give out prizes in some way, shape, or form. And as far as education, my previous job, over 2 summers, I helped to put $200,000 back into 67214. We focused on 3rd grade reading and writing achievement levels, working with 1 year kindergarten to 3rd grade, but then we went from 1st grade to 3rd grade. And so I understand the need for education, I understand the need to make a holistic approach, you know, not just the kids, we gotta include the family as well, and that's what we were working on. I'm no longer with that organization, but there are other organizations that picked up the baton and are still running with it. Again, offering these summer programs with the intention of being holistically helping the entire family.
Okay, first question.
She's gotta
Neighborhood
finish.
cleanup is a challenge. I've done it for the last 8 years and it's a real challenge. When we talk about the trash that we see throughout the communities, I'm afraid that's going to increase because of economics. People can't afford to pay the trash. And so I'm looking at and discussing with some of the city officials, all these vacant lots that we have around here. Can we take one of those lots and provide a facility for community to be able to bring those type of things? And then once a month, the city take care of the cost of getting rid of those things. So I'm already working, looking towards developing a plan to keep our communities clean, to get them cleaned up. And to help you, Juanita, thinking of, you don't really need more advertising, you need equipment, you need bodies.
Yes.
That's what you need. So that's what I would be working on. Get together, form a committee where we can go out to different areas, the military base. There's a lot of resources that we can connect and form something, that is just dedicated to beautifying District 1.
And we have one more question, and that's gonna be it. And this is from Melanie Miller's granddaughter. This is to the panel. How do you see the city of Wichita working with USD 259 that may create opportunities where we can collaboratively give access to the multiple resources via the nonprofits, businesses, government, city, county, and state? That's a long question.
They can do what?
She wants to know, how can the city of Wichita, working with USD 259, create opportunities where we can collaboratively give access to multiple resources via nonprofits, businesses, government, city, county, and state.
I think
Who wants to take that first?
So, are she wanting us to bring these resources into USD 259?
Yeah, work collaboratively together to access those resources to give opportunities.
Well, that is definitely part of my platform, that city, we talk about economics, we have to be working with USD 259 to project the future. So if they say that we're gonna, I don't know, we have tech boom already, I don't know, whatever the next big boom is, we have to be working with our students to get them prepared for that next boom. So we have to be working, USD 259, City of Wichita, State of Kansas, we all have to be working on everything together. Talked about resources from the federal level, although it may be changing, goes to the state, from the state to the cities. But if we're not working with our state officials, we won't know about those resources, right? We'll miss out again. So we gotta have those relationships that we've been talking about. And if USD 259 is part of is on the table with us, then they should be working with us every step of the way. As a matter of fact, we can't do it without USD 259, in my opinion. So we have to be, city has to be working with them, the county has to be working with them, because our youth are our future, right? They are the next workforce, they are the next taxpayers, they are the homeowners. And so if we're not going to be prepared at a young age, again, it's going to affect us down the road. So we have to be working together.
I agree, we must work together, but, and to answer what I think I heard, we have social workers, we have teachers in our schools. There needs to be a liaison between the city and the county that puts together whatever programs they have available, and make sure that that school is aware of what it is and how to access it. It's very simple, that's not hard. That's not hard. The city develop, they know what their programs are. Provide that to every social worker at every school. County do the same thing. Nonprofits throughout the city that are passionate, diligent, and doing the work and have a track record to prove it, do the same thing. Make sure that neighborhood association presidents have that same list. It's grassroots. You gotta get to the people.
Make sure those neighborhood presidents have a bucket of resources, funds that could go into those neighborhoods.
We've been talking, I know you know Becky Fields. And so her and I have been talking about providing, $10,000, $15,000 annually to every neighborhood association that is a part of WIN, that is active, and that needs to come from the city. We can do that with the tax base we're already taking up and not have to increase taxes to do it. So that is something that I'll also be looking at, because everything starts with the neighborhood association. If you don't have a neighborhood, if your neighborhoods are not healthy, your city is not healthy. Without neighborhoods, you have no city.
Right.
So we need to invest in our neighborhoods.
So I think what we need to do right now, the city and the county has what's called an en banc meeting, where they meet annually together to talk about these collaborative issues that they can tackle together. And the question I've always had is, why are we not including the Board of Education in on those collaborative meetings, and why are we only having them one time a year? I think we need to at least, at minimum, meet collaboratively 2 times a year, both at a mid-year and end of the year, or the beginning and the end, to assess kind of what we talked about, where we said we were going to collaborate, and the outcomes of that collaboration. I know I attended a meeting about shared services as well, between the city and the county and the Board of Education, and I think there's a unique opportunity to maximize the impact that we have in our schools and in the city and the county if we're working together and figuring out how do we look at what we're funding on the city, county, and Board of Education in, where are there duplicative, where's there overlap, and how can we come together to, again, maximize our reach, free up some dollars to do some other things like, I don't know, actually impact the young people who are in the schools in their neighborhoods when they get outside of the 4 walls of the schools. So that would be an opportunity. I think the Future Ready Center is a remarkable opportunity for young people to look at what careers that they can explore without having to pursue a 4-year degree. Although I agree with the commentary that was made earlier that I believe that college is for everybody. Not everybody has the opportunity to pursue it. I think folks would look at me and my family's dynamic and say, oh, he's not college ready. And I luckily was able to pursue a college degree because of the village pushed me in that direction. And once I was there, I actually did fine. And I think more of our children would do fine if they had the opportunity. But for those who don't, let's look at a career in cybersecurity. That is going to be the leading profession in which folks can make a good meeting. And then we have to act collaboratively for grants. The last thing I would say is I had an opportunity to sit down with teachers, and when I asked them what was the most pressing thing on their mind, they mentioned the high suspension and expulsion rates for Black girls in our schools. And I said, that is very concerning. We all, most of us probably recall the DOJ and that report that came out. But here's what we know. When our Black girls or any of our children are being suspended or expelled from school, it is upon us to stand in the gap and solve and ensure that they are getting that education, getting the nurturing and the care, the love and the support that they need to recognize that they are not bad people and they are not individuals who should go from preschool to prison. And we have to interrupt that idea. And the way we interrupt that idea, my plan is investing in the neighborhood centers and imploring and utilizing our retired educators and teachers and community leaders to stand in the gap so that in the case a child is suspended, mama, daddy, grandpa, auntie, uncle can say, you may have thought you was gonna get a break from school, but you're gonna take your tail down to the Atwater Neighborhood Center and continue to get that education. I'm a product of the village. My parents weren't able to do everything for me, but they were able to instill in me hard work, tough love, and determination. And they introduced me to people who saw me and they got me together. And I am where I am, not because of my degrees and what I make. I am where I am because the people who love me enough to tell me I'm better than that. And that's the attitude we have to pour into our children.
When the school boards get rid of the Sister Girl book clubs and the Creative Thinkers Learning Club, when they don't support those programs for Black girls, hello, President.
The neighborhoods, the
That's what I'm
city
saying, but
needs to
those
step
were
in.
right there, those programs were right there in the school,
right.
and it was
Problem.
a deterrent for African American girls. They had somewhere to go at lunchtime, they had somewhere to go at after school, they had someone who cared about their birthday.
And they're reading.
Yes.
So what it gets back to, because I've been a substitute teacher, I've done it many years. I've been in the schools day in and day out. The teachers have so much on their plates. The social workers have so much on their plates. It's a different animal in the schools right now. It's different. And so we gotta get community. While we want city and county in our schools, community has to get back in our schools as well. Because that's where I'm telling you all, when I see men come into the schools and I see women come into the schools, it's a different dynamic. I was a mentor before I was a substitute. I was a mentor at a middle school. And the girls, I had a girls group. The boys group gravitated to my group. I had girls and boys. It was just a free place for them to talk and just be themselves. And then you could talk about, I had an issue with a teacher. I was able to talk to the teacher and we could come to a common ground on how to fix the issue. So we want city in the school because that dictates the future. While we're trying to bring these new businesses to Wichita, we gotta have a workforce that's ready. Same thing on the county side. But if we as the adults don't get back in our schools, we've seen the behavior change. You know, some people blame it on COVID. I don't know what's changed, but when we are in the schools, y'all, it's different. So I would definitely advocate for that.
And recognizing that not every family has the ability to be in the schools, and it doesn't mean that they don't care. My sister works night and day. She cares about my nieces and nephews, and sometimes Uncle JoJo's gotta take the call to go up to the school and get them right. So, but guess what? While I'm there, if I see another child showing out,
Amen.
it is indicative that we stand in the gap. So yes, it's great that community's in school, but this is why it's so important that we look at the village and not separate. You're this person and you're from that place and that. We all need each other, and we have to lift each other up. And when we see somebody's child going down the wrong path, we have to respond with an open heart and an open mind, and not respond in a way in which we are dehumanizing folks. And so when I say city and county being in the schools, I mean from a collaborative funding perspective. We need any and everybody who wants to support our children, who care about the safety and quality education of our children, to be in there and showing up. But the reality is, not every household looks like the traditional household. Hello, mine doesn't. And also has the ability or the time to be on their children, and that doesn't mean that they're ill-equipped to be a good parent.
You need to add in the byproduct of, some of them don't want you to
Yes,
discipline their
absolutely,
children.
that's right.
So that's what the
also-
teachers are meeting with right now, is they don't want you telling their son, well, you better sit your behind
Right.
down and read.
Right.
And that's why when we go into the schools, we develop relationships. It takes more than one time. If you walk into school and check somebody's kid, you might get checked right back. But they see you there consistently, and
Exactly.
consistently
Exactly.
they respond.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it sometimes.
Sometimes.
I'm gonna say this.
And relationships matter.
Yes.
Gentlemen back here.
First thing, let me answer this question. First thing, when we see an overabundance or an aggregate, a number of our girls being expelled and suspended, we need to know why. There needs to be, as when I was a child, well, not a child, but when I was a young person and in school, I'm gonna take it back to the 60s. We were involved. The church was involved. It was the hub of the black community. They had student advocacies, groups that went to the school to find out, why was this child suspended? That's where we need to start. Why are we having so many of our young girls suspended? What is the problem?
Miss
Once
Bennett.
we do that, we need to have cultural programs
Yeah.
for them to be a part of.
And let me say this, the DOJ and USD 259 went into an agreement July of 2024 because of this issue.
Yes.
Because our black students were disproportionately expelled and suspended, especially our young black girls, due to their hair.
Yes.
So what we need to find out is, how is this agreement working out? What are they doing?
Now,
That's
And,
Trump is in
okay,
office.
so I sit on that board, they put together a committee,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, with the loss of Dr. Polite, it kind of stalled a little bit. But, I talked to, board member Melanie McCray, she said that they're looking at getting it back activated, because that is the group that's supposed to be like the watchdog. So,
Doing the recommendations and all that.
Let me say something. Let me say something.
Sir?
wait, I think.
Yeah.
We have a Crown Act, okay? We should not have to have a law
We shouldn't.
that
That's
says we
right.
have to wear our hair a certain way.
That's right.
But we do.
Yeah.
And so we need to get our legislators to get that law passed. It's been on the books too long already.
I think it's passed, hasn't it?
It did pass.
It did pass?
It's about time, because it's been on the books forever.
Yeah.
But I have not seen it pass.
Yeah, it's passed.
I haven't seen it
Crown
pass.
Act has not passed the
It has
state.
not passed.
It has not passed the state, it says in Wichita.
Of the
Because
city.
if that
It
had
has not
passed,
passed statewide.
Okay.
those things wouldn't be happening.
One more question.
We got one last question, and then we got closing
If you all-
statements to the
we can-
candidates.
To have the meeting, the meeting at the parking lot, you have more questions.
Go ahead, sir.
I belong to Violence Impact Community Information Program. And we teach financial literacy, we teach anger management, we teach substance abuse. All of this at JRH, Juvenile Residence Home. I teach the financial piece of it. And we've been trying to get into USD 259 for I know at least a year and a half to 2 years. And we have been stalled in every way possible. We've talked to people that are in USD 259. They say that they only have so much room for outside programs to come in. We have an 8-week curriculum that's specifically designed for anti-bullying, anti-gang, anger management, substance abuse, financial literacy, building businesses. We teach all of that at JRH, and believe me, it makes a difference. Even with the kids at JRH and the things that they come out and they say to us after they go through the program. We want to know, how can we get into USD 259? How can we get in and teach this 8-week curriculum? It's just an hour a week. You know, we can get in there, we can teach it in 8 weeks, we can teach it in 13 weeks. Our program has even been endorsed by, I mean, a lot of our people are assigned to us by the court. So the court is like, yeah, it's a good program. So
Well,
why
they
can't?
say they won't help, but they don't mean it.
So,
But they don't let us in. How can we get in?
because I work for a nonprofit and we can't get in either because we do surveys. Look at it as a club. Have you tried that approach? As not a part of the curriculum, it's an after-school program, it's an after-school club. Try
Or a
that.
lunch program.
Yeah, or, because there are, like.
But you have to talk to it, start out with an individual principal. You know, and then that principal gets it approved for you to come into that particular school. So start out with, start small.
Yeah.
And try to.
And I think I made, she's
And
with
what-
us.
and the other thing is, make sure that your, the language in your grant or what have you, does not talk about DEI or any cultural.
Which is so
language.
sad.
Cause USC 259 has,
You
is
can't
part of
have
that.
that.
DEI.
You
Yeah.
can't have that language in any document, but,
They got to.
and I know the reality is that education is changing.
Yeah.
The face of public education is changing, and, you know, as much as we would like to think that our kids are gonna be okay, chances are the changes are going to affect them in a very adverse way. And so,
Just sad.
that's just something to keep in mind.
Let me finish with this. I worked in law enforcement for over 25 years, both at the local and the federal level. I worked with the U.S. Marshal Service. I also worked as a Liberty PD police officer. One of the things that we noticed just before I got ready to retire was that a lot of our young girls were affiliating or attaching themselves to young men who were on radar of state, local, federal, law enforcement. And these young girls began to carry the weapons. They began to do the dirt because they were less likely to be arrested. They were less likely to be searched. They were less likely to be stopped. That's why they drive the cars. That's why they rent the apartments in their name. That's why they hold the money. That's why they hold the drugs. And it's not all about hair. We've got to find a way to give something to our young girls, whether it be self-esteem, I don't know what it is that we have to do, but they are becoming the criminal element of the future.
That's growing prison population.
They are becoming the criminal element of the future. Because they feel as though they're just as good as a guy. And the guys are pumping them up, and they're carrying the weapon. Like I said, they're the ones that carry the weapons into the clubs. That these guys are carrying the weapons because they know, we know them, and we're gonna stop them. Okay, so it's the girls that's carrying the weapons.
Yeah.
It's the girls that's carrying the drugs. They go into the club with the drugs. They go into the bathroom. They extract the drugs from themselves. They give it to the guys. The guys do what they do. When they get ready to leave, they put it back on them. They get out. I mean, That's the wave of the future. That's what's going on.
That's
And
why
we
we're
have to
on
find
fast
out
going
a
prison
way to
hospital.
stop this. And I don't know about the girls' club that you were just talking about,
Yes.
but, if it works, the city has to support it, regardless as to if it's black, white, or whatever. Because you're finding that in just about every culture.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're gonna have closing statements from candidates. Mr. Shepherd, you have 2 minutes to do your closing statement.
All right, thank you all so much for being here. Again, my name is Joseph Shepherd. I'm asking for your vote on August the 5th. That is the primary day. There are 5 of us in the election, only 2 move on to the general election. And I can't stress enough how important it is for us to get this right. And you have to decide what is right for you. But I'm running because I want to bring hope and help back to local government. Wichita is my chosen home. It's the community that adopted me, that brought me in, that nurtured me, and I'm a product of what happens when this community sows the seed and invests in you. I'm running because I want to fight for the values that we share. I want to stop the political theater, and I want to get back to work to moving the needle for things that actually change the lives of folks. Economic advancement, making sure that we are cultivating strong communities, and making sure that we are building trust between the community and local government. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've said some things I shouldn't have said. I've done some things I shouldn't have done. I've been with some people I shouldn't have been with. But what I will tell you is that I care about this community, and I'm ready to go to war and fight for this community, every corner of it, because that is who I was raised to be. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello. Again, I am LaWanda DeShazer, and I am running for the City Council, District 1 seat. I've been doing the work for over 20 years. I've been on the District 1 Advisory Board for as long as Councilman Johnson has been there. I've seen the code enforcement. I've seen the reports on fire. I know our firehouses are falling apart. I know some communities feel over-policed. I know we can do better. We can bring community policing back and really put community into it and help our neighborhoods. I know that I ride down 17th Street, I ride down 13th Street, I drive down 21st Street. When I was a little girl, I look at it now, it looks exactly the same. And I know we can do better. I know the funding is there. They said the money, the city has a rainy day budget. I say it's raining right now. Let's move some of that money out and let's do some things that really make an impact on the people that have been forgotten. Cottage Hill has designed this plan to say what we don't want in our neighborhoods and what we do want. I want every community in District 1 to do the exact same thing. We all can start saying, I don't want any more payday loans, right? I don't want any more family dollars. I want some viable businesses to come back into it at the district that's been forgotten. When we had the manufacturing plant on 21st Street, we brought in new jobs. People got skills and were able to do some things. We can do those things again. I'm running for District 1 because this is my community. I went to Southeast. I went to WSU for a hot minute. I love the Bulldogs. Mr. Chris was my mentor. I was raised to give back and to love my community, and that's what I'm all about. I want to go to the next level because that's where the resources are. It doesn't matter. I can do all the work on the ground I want to, but if I don't have the resources, my ability to affect change is minimal. So I want to be where the resources are. I want to pass on that information so that nobody's left in the dark. I can't do it by myself. That's why I want you all to elect me as the next representative of District 1. I'm going to disseminate information. We're going to do this together. And when I win, we all win. I am the one who wins.
This campaign is not politics. It's about people. It's about building the kind of leadership that listens before it speaks, that acts with integrity, that brings every voice to the table. I'm not here to make a lot of noise. I'm here to make change. I'm not here to divide us. I'm here to deliver for us. Because I believe that District 1 isn't just ready for a new voice, we're ready to be heard. We have our voice has been stifled for many, many years. We can go back to Dockham and see where our voice has been stifled. We can go back to the plane crash on Pike and see where our voice has been stifled. We hear what's happening to our children. We try to get in the school board, we're shut down. No more of that. It is time for us to be heard. Together, we can build a Wichita where democracy is real. Opportunity is shared and progress is felt on every block by every family. So, you've seen the fights I've been in, you see the fights that I'm in now. If you believe that your voice matters and that your story deserves respect and that your neighborhood is worth investing in, then I'm asking you to walk with me. Vote for me on August the 5th. Stand there after August the 5th and help me say what needs to be said in this town to those that need to hear it. It does take a village to raise one child. And right now, all of our children are in trouble. So it's our responsibility to change that. They aren't just our future, they're our now.
That's right.
So walk with me, stand with me, help me change the way things are in our community. Let's rise together, let's fight together, let's build something better together. So God bless you, and y'all pray for me. Thank you.
All right already. This has been great. Thank you for attending. Thank you. I'm hoping that people joined us on live.
They're on there.
They on there? Okay. And so appreciate everything that, the audience did in asking questions, and the candidates attended this, and all of y'all did a great job. You all did a great job, and I appreciate the fact that you showed up. And you showed out. So thank you. Yeah.
I'll sit there.
But I do have a question. I was just talking to my niece. She's in the 5th grade. I remember when I was in elementary school, the fire marshals coming in, showing us the fire trucks, possibly playing with the water hose, getting us excited and not scared of fires, teaching us how to put out fires on ourselves and everything, She told me that she's never had that talk, not with a police officer, not with a fire marshal. And you guys are talking about, youth and programs and education. And I feel like one part that would get kids more apt to owning a home is not being afraid of 1, security, and 2, fires, knowing how to protect themselves. So I feel like that's a...
So, I've been in schools where they are still coming and doing stop, drop, and roll. I worked for Sedgwick County Fire for over 20 years, and I know they go into schools. So it may get back to her principal at the school. But, there are after-school programs. Al Ward mentioned one, and if we need to find her a program, we can. And then we also can talk to the school she attends. Yes.
She can also do a ride along with an adult. So I would encourage you to do that. I mean, that changed my perspective when I did that ride along. And I think everybody should do a ride along at least for an hour.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that was a
But
great
let's try to get
experience.
somebody in the schools.
I want them to ride along with me.
I want them to ride along with me.
Everybody can be in the school and do the ride along.
Come look at these abandoned.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.